The colony ship Harmony's Dawn moved slowly through the dark space between stars, carrying 50,000 Zephyrian refugees who had fled their dying world 3 months ago. Captain Veltar stood in the ship's command center, watching the stars through the large viewing window while her crew worked quietly at their stations. The Zephyrians were a peaceful people who looked like tall, thin humans, but with blue-green skin that seemed to shimmer like water in the light. They had long, graceful fingers that were perfect for their work as healers and farmers, but not so good for fighting. Veltar had hoped they would reach the new world her people had chosen without any trouble, but space was not always safe for those who could not defend themselves. The Zephyrians had built their ship for carrying people and growing food, not for war. Their weapons were only good for clearing space rocks from their path, nothing more. Navigation Officer Kefal looked up from his station with worry in his large, dark eyes. "Captain, I am seeing something strange on the long-range sensors," he said in the soft, musical voice that all Zephyrians shared. "There are ships coming toward us, many ships, and they are moving very fast." Veltar moved to his station and looked at the display. What she saw made her blood run cold. 47 ships were racing toward them, and she knew exactly what they were. The energy patterns were unmistakable. These were Kronak warships, the terror of this part of the galaxy. The Kronak were everything the Zephyrians were not. They were large, strong, and loved violence. Their skin was thick and gray like stone, and they had sharp teeth and claws that could tear metal. They traveled through space in great fleets, taking what they wanted and making slaves of anyone too weak to stop them. Peaceful species like the Zephyrians were their favorite targets. "How long until they reach us?" Veltar asked, though she already feared the answer. "At their current speed, they will be here in 72 hours, Kefal replied. "Captain, our engines cannot move fast enough to escape them, and we cannot fight them with our weapons." Veltar closed her eyes for a moment. She had known this day might come, but she had hoped they would be lucky enough to avoid it. The Kronak fleet was huge, and the Harmony's Dawn was just one ship full of families and children. There was no way they could win a battle. "Send a message to all department heads," she ordered. "Tell them to meet me in the conference room immediately." 20 minutes later, Veltar sat with her senior officers around a table made from the same blue-green crystal that their homeworld had been famous for. Chief Engineer Tolek, Medical Officer Helara, and Security Chief Zephin all looked as worried as she felt. "We all know what the Kronak do to the people they capture," Veltar said. "The strong ones become slaves in their mines and factories. The weak ones are killed. The children are sold to other species who want servants they can train from a young age." Helara, who had long silver hair that marked her as one of the oldest Zephyrians on the ship, spoke first. "What can we do? Our medical knowledge might be valuable to them. Perhaps we could offer to trade our healing techniques for safe passage." Zephin shook his head. "The Kronak do not make fair trades. They will take our knowledge and still make us slaves. I have heard the stories from other species who tried to bargain with them." Tolek looked at his hands. "Our ship has some defensive shields, but they are meant to protect us from space rocks and radiation, not from military weapons. The Kronak ships have guns that can destroy whole planets." Veltar had been thinking about their options during the meeting, and she had remembered something from her training as a young officer. "There is one thing we can try," she said. "The old emergency protocol." The others looked confused. "What protocol?" Zephin asked. "Before the Kronak became so powerful, many species in this part of space made an agreement. If any peaceful people were in great danger, they could send out a special signal asking for help from any nearby civilization. It was called the Protection Protocol. Helara frowned. But Captain, that was created hundreds of years ago. Most of the species who made that agreement are gone now, either destroyed by the Kronak or hiding in distant parts of the galaxy. I know, Veltar said. But what if there are other species out there that we do not know about? What if someone hears our call and decides to help? The room was quiet for a long moment. Finally, Tolek spoke. It is better than doing nothing. Even if no one comes, at least we will have tried everything. Veltar nodded. Tolek, I want you to modify our communication array to broadcast the emergency signal on all frequencies. Make it as powerful as you can. Include our location, the size of the threat we are facing, and how much time we have left. I will need 6 hours to make the changes, Tolek said. Then start immediately, Veltar ordered. The rest of you, prepare the ship for possible combat. I know we cannot win, but we will not make it easy for them. Far away from the Harmony's dawn, on a small planet called Earth, the night shift was just beginning at Deep Space Monitoring Station Blackwater. The station was built into the side of a mountain in what humans called Montana, and it was one of 12 facilities that watched the sky for signs of alien activity. Commander Jake Morrison was a tall man with short brown hair and the kind of calm manner that came from 20 years in the military. He was drinking his third cup of coffee of the evening when communications specialist Lisa Torres called out from her station. "Sir, I'm getting something weird on Channel 7, Lisa said. She was younger than Jake, with long black hair and quick hands that moved over her controls like a pianist playing a difficult song. It is not like anything in our databases. Jake walked over to her station and looked at the display. Strange patterns of light were moving across the screen in ways he had never seen before. What do you think it is? I'm not sure yet, but it is coming from very far away. Maybe from outside our local group of star systems, Lisa said. The signal is very strong, which means whoever sent it used a lot of power. Can you decode it? Lisa's fingers moved quickly over her keyboard. I am running it through all of our translation programs now. Wait, I am getting something. The computer screen filled with text, and Jake read it with growing amazement. It was a message from creatures called Zephyrians, asking for help against something called the Kronak hegemony. The message included star charts showing their location and detailed information about the threat they faced. My God, Jake whispered. Lisa, get me General Hayes at Earth Command immediately. We need to wake up some very important people. Within 6 hours, every major government on Earth knew about the alien message, and the response was faster and more unified than anyone had expected. Humanity had been preparing for first contact for decades, but they had never imagined it would come in the form of a plea for help, from refugees being hunted by space pirates. The decision was made at the highest levels of human government. Earth would send help, and they would send their best. The UNS Reaper was humanity's newest and most advanced warship, built using technology that had been developed in secret for the past 10 years. Captain Alex Kane had been chosen to command the mission, not because he was the highest-ranking officer in the fleet, but because he was the best at thinking quickly and making hard decisions under pressure. As the Reaper prepared to leave Earth, orbit, Jake Morrison and Lisa Torres watched from their mountain station. They had started something that would change human history forever, though they did not know it yet. Do you think they will make it in time? Lisa asked. Jake looked at the stars and thought about the peaceful aliens who were counting on them. I hope so, because if there is one thing humans are good at, It is protecting people who cannot protect themselves. Captain Alex Kane stood on the bridge of the UNS Reaper as Earth grew smaller behind them, his experienced eyes studying the star charts that showed their destination. At 42 years old, Kane had spent half his life in space, fighting pirates and protecting merchant ships in the outer colonies. He was not the tallest man in the human fleet, but there was something about the way he carried himself that made other people listen when he spoke. The Reaper was unlike any ship that had ever been built on Earth. It was 300 meters long and looked more like a weapon than a vehicle, with smooth black armor that could absorb enemy radar and weapons that could destroy objects the size of small moons. The ship had been designed by humans who understood that space was not a safe place, and that sometimes the only way to protect innocent people was to be more dangerous than the things that wanted to hurt them. "Ryan, what do we know about these Kronak?" Kane asked his tactical officer, Lieutenant Ryan Brooks. Ryan was a thin man with red hair and green eyes who had grown up on Mars, where people learn to think fast or die in the harsh environment. He had spent the last 6 hours studying every piece of information Earth's computers could find about the alien empire. "They are bad news, Captain," Ryan said, looking up from his display. "Based on what we can learn from intercepted communications and refugee reports, the Kronak have been conquering peaceful species for over 200 years. They use overwhelming numbers and brute force tactics, relying on their thick armor and heavy weapons to smash through any resistance." Kane nodded. "How do they usually fight?" "They surround their targets with large fleets and demand surrender. Most species give up without a fight because the Kronak reputation is so scary. When someone does try to resist, the Kronak just throw more ships at the problem until their enemies are crushed." Chief Engineer Maria Santos looked up from her station near the back of the bridge. She was a small woman with dark skin and clever hands that could fix anything, and she had been working on the Reaper's engine since before the ship was completed. "Captain, I have been thinking about the numbers. The aliens said there are 47 Kronak ships heading for the refugee vessel." "What are you thinking, Maria?" Kane asked. "Well, sir, those are not good odds for a straight fight, even with our advantages. But the Kronak have never fought humans before. They do not know what we are capable of, and that might be the edge we need." Kane smiled. Maria was right, as usual. The Kronak had spent centuries fighting species that were naturally peaceful or technologically limited. They had never encountered humans, who had evolved on a world where everything from the weather to the wildlife was trying to kill them. Earth was what galactic scientists called a deathworld, a planet so dangerous that only the toughest and smartest creatures could survive there. "Tyler, what is our weapons status?" Kane asked the ship's weapons specialist, Sergeant Tyler Hunt. Tyler was a big man from Texas who had joined the military after growing up hunting dangerous animals in the American wilderness. If there was a way to destroy something, Tyler probably knew 3 different methods. "All systems are green, Captain. We have 12 rail guns that can punch holes through solid rock, 6 plasma cannons that can melt steel, 18 nuclear torpedoes, and the new gravity weapon that the engineers are still not sure how to explain, plus enough smaller weapons to fight off an entire pirate fleet." Dr. Kate Walsh, the ship's medical officer, looked worried. "Captain, I understand why we are going to help these refugees, but are we sure we can make a difference? Even with all our weapons, we are still just one ship against almost 50. Kane turned to look at her. Kate was a smart woman who had served on hospital ships for 10 years, saving lives in some of the most dangerous places in human space. She was not afraid of danger, but she was practical about odds. "Kate, I know the numbers look impossible," Kane said, but humans have been beating impossible odds for thousands of years. We survived ice ages and plagues and wars that should have wiped us out completely. We learned to work together and use our brains instead of just our strength. That is what makes us different from species like the Kronak. The bridge was quiet for a moment as the crew thought about what lay ahead. Then Ryan spoke up. "Captain, I have been looking at the tactical information about Kronak fleet movements. They always use the same basic formation, a sphere with the strongest ships on the outside and the command vessel in the center. They rely on their armor and numbers to protect them." "That could work to our advantage," Kane said. "They are probably expecting the refugees to surrender without a fight, so they will not be ready for an attack. Maria, how long until we reach their position?" "At maximum speed, 68 hours, sir. We will arrive about 4 hours after the Kronak fleet." Kane frowned. "Can we go faster?" "I can push the engines harder, but it will be risky. The new drive system has only been tested a few times." "Do it. Those refugees are counting on us." Maria nodded and began working on her controls. Within minutes, the Reaper was moving faster than any human ship had ever traveled, racing through space toward a battle that would determine the fate of 50,000 innocent aliens. Meanwhile, the Kronak fleet was closing in on the Harmonies. Dawn. Warlord Thexra stood in the command center of his flagship, the Bone Crusher, studying images of the refugee ship on his main display. He was a massive creature, even by Kronak standards, with gray skin as thick as armor plating and teeth that could bite through metal cables. Scars from 100 battles covered his arms and chest, and his yellow eyes held the cold intelligence of a predator who had never met anything he could not kill or conquer. "Report," Thexra growled to his communications officer, a smaller Kronak named Velok. "The refugee ship has not responded to our demands for surrender, Warlord." They continue to broadcast some kind of emergency signal on multiple frequencies. Thexra laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Let them cry for help. No one in this sector is strong enough to challenge the Kronak hegemony. What species are these refugees?" "They call themselves Zephyrians, Warlord. Our databases show they are a peaceful people with advanced medical knowledge and agricultural techniques. They should bring good prices in the slave markets." "Excellent. And their ship?" "Large but lightly armed, sir. Built for carrying people, not for fighting. Our weapons can cut through their hull like it was made of paper." Thexra studied the image of the Harmony's Dawn. It was a beautiful ship, with graceful curves and what looked like gardens visible through transparent sections of the hull. The Kronak warships, by contrast, were built like flying fortresses, covered in weapons and armor plating. "I want to board that ship personally," Thexra decided. "It has been too long since I had the pleasure of accepting the surrender of a new species. Signal the fleet to surround the refugee vessel, but do not fire unless I give the order. I want to see the fear in their eyes when they realize there is no escape." Back on the Harmony's Dawn, Captain Veltar received the report she had been dreading. "The Kronak fleet is in visual range," Navigation Officer Kefal announced. 47 warships, just as our sensors predicted. Veltar looked through the main viewing window and saw lights in the distance, growing brighter as the enemy ships approached. Each one was larger than her entire vessel, and she could see weapons pointing toward them like the teeth of some enormous predator. "Any response to our emergency signal?" she asked hopefully. Communications Officer Hilvin shook his head sadly. "Nothing, Captain. I have been monitoring all frequencies, but no one has answered our call for help." Veltar felt her heart sink. She had hoped against hope that someone would hear their plea and come to their aid. But it seemed they were truly alone. In a few hours, the Kronak would board her ship and begin the process of enslaving her people. The children would be taken from their parents, the adults would be worked to death in alien mines, and the Zephyrian people would become just another extinct species that the Kronak had destroyed. But Veltar was wrong about being alone, because at that very moment, the UNS Reaper was racing through space toward them, carrying humans who had decided that evil would not win while they had the power to stop it. The UNS Reaper dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the star system, where the Zephyrian refugees waited for their fate. Captain Alex Kane stood on his bridge, watching as his sensors painted a picture of what they were facing. The Kronak fleet had formed a sphere around the colony ship, just as Ryan Brooks had predicted, with their largest vessels positioned to block any escape routes. "Jesus," Tyler Hunt whispered, as the tactical display showed the full size of the enemy force. "Those ships are huge. Each one has to be at least twice our mass." Kane studied the display calmly. He had learned long ago that the size of your enemy was less important than how smart you were about fighting them. "Maria, take us in slow and quiet. I want to get closer before they notice us." Chief Engineer Maria Santos nodded and adjusted their approach vector. The Reaper moved through space, like a shadow, using its advanced stealth systems to avoid detection. Kane wanted to see exactly what they were dealing with before revealing their presence to the Kronak fleet. "Ryan, what are you seeing on the sensor sweeps?" Kane asked. Lieutenant Ryan Brooks worked at his station with practiced efficiency. "The Kronak formation is loose, Captain. They are not expecting any resistance, so their ships are spread out in a standard patrol pattern. Most of their weapons are pointed inward toward the refugee vessel, not outward for defense." Dr. Kate Walsh looked up from her medical station. "Captain, I am detecting life signs on the colony ship. Whatever the Kronak are doing to the refugees, they are keeping most of them alive." Kane felt a mixture of relief and anger. The Zephyrians were still breathing, but Kane could imagine what they were going through as they waited for their captors to decide their fate. The Kronak had a reputation for enjoying the fear of their victims almost as much as they enjoyed the profits from slavery. "Sir, I am picking up communications between the Kronak ships," Lisa Torres announced from her position at the communications station. She had been transferred to the Reaper at the last minute when they needed someone who could work with alien languages. "They are using a fairly simple code. Give me a few minutes and I should be able to translate." Kane waited while Lisa worked her magic with the alien transmissions. Around him, his crew prepared for what was coming. Tyler checked and rechecked their weapons systems, Maria fine-tuned the engines for maximum performance, and Ryan plotted attack routes through the enemy formation. "Got it," Lisa said suddenly. "Captain, the Kronak leader is planning to board the refugee ship personally. He wants to accept their surrender face to face. From what I can tell, this is some kind of ritual for him." Kane felt his anger growing. The Kronak warlord was not just conquering these people, he was enjoying it. The refugees were nothing more than entertainment to him. "When is he planning to board?" "Within the hour, sir. He has ordered his flagship to move closer to the colony ship." Kane made his decision. "All right, people. Here is what we are going to do. We are going to announce our presence and see how they react. Lisa, open a channel to the Kronak flagship." Lisa's hands moved over her controls. "Channel open, sir." Kane took a deep breath. He was about to start a war with an alien empire, but some things were worth fighting for. "Kronak vessel, this is Captain Alex Kane of the United Nations Ship Reaper. You are threatening peaceful refugees under the protection of Earth. Withdraw your forces immediately or face the consequences. The bridge was silent for a long moment. Then Lisa spoke. Sir, they are responding. The main screen flickered and showed the interior of the Kronak flagship. Warlord Thexra filled most of the image, his massive frame covered in scars and his yellow eyes burning with amusement. When he spoke, his voice was like grinding stone. Human, Thexra rumbled. I have never heard of your species or your pathetic little world. You have one small ship, and I have 47. Surrender now, and I might let you live long enough to watch your new friends become slaves. Kane stared back at the alien warlord without showing any fear. I have a better idea. You have 10 minutes to release the refugees and leave this system. If you refuse, I will destroy your entire fleet. Thexra threw back his massive head and laughed. One ship against 47? Human, your species must be even more stupid than they are ugly. I will make you a deal. Surrender your vessel to me, and I will only kill half of your crew. The other half can work in the mines alongside the blue-skinned weaklings. That is not going to happen, Kane said quietly. Then you will die, Thexra snarled. But first, I want you to watch what happens to those you try to protect. The screen went dark as the Kronak warlord cut the transmission. Kane turned to his crew. You all heard that. Any questions about what we need to do? Tyler Hunt was the first to speak. How do you want to play this, Captain? Hit and run or go straight at them? Straight at them, Kane decided. These bastards think we are weak because we only have one ship. Let's show them what happens when you threaten people under human protection. Ryan, target the ships closest, to the refugee vessel. I want to clear them a path to escape. Aye, sir. Targeting solutions ready. Maria, give me everything the engines have got. Tyler, prepare to fire on my mark. Kane watched as 5 Kronak destroyers moved toward their position, obviously intending to disable what their commander thought was a helpless human ship. The aliens had no idea what they were about to face. The Reaper had been built by people who understood that sometimes the only way to protect the innocent was to be more dangerous than those who wanted to hurt them. Enemy vessels are entering optimal firing range, Ryan announced. Fire, Kane ordered. The Reaper transformed from a sleek black ship into an instrument of destruction. Railgun projectiles moving at a significant fraction of the speed of light punched through the first Kronak destroyer's armor like it was made of paper. The alien ship exploded in a ball of fire and debris that lit up the darkness of space. The second destroyer lasted only a few seconds longer before plasma cannons turned its hull into molten metal. The third ship tried to turn away, but Hunt had been hunting dangerous prey since he was old enough to hold a rifle, and he did not miss. A nuclear torpedo struck the Kronak vessel amidships, breaking it in half. The fourth and fifth destroyers managed to return fire, but their weapons struck the Reaper's shields and scattered harmlessly into space. Ryan Brooks had calculated the enemy's firing solutions and positioned their ship precisely where the Kronak weapons would be least effective. 3 down, 2 crippled, Tyler reported with satisfaction. The surviving ships are trying to withdraw. Kane nodded. Let them go. I want the rest of the fleet to see what happened to their advance guard. Across the Kronak fleet, alarm sirens wailed as the aliens tried to understand what they had just witnessed. 5 of their warships had been destroyed or disabled by a single enemy vessel in less than 2 minutes. It was impossible, but the evidence was floating in space around them. On the bridge of the Bone Crusher, Warlord Thexra stared at his tactical display in shock. He had conquered dozens of species over his long career, but he had never seen anything like what the human ship had just done. The weapons technology was beyond anything in his experience. "Analysis," he growled to his tactical officer. "Warlord, the human vessel appears to be using kinetic weapons with extremely high velocity, plasma-based energy cannons, and some kind of explosive projectile. Their defensive systems absorbed our return fire without apparent damage." Thexra's yellow eyes narrowed. "How is that possible? Their ship is not even half the size of our destroyers." "Unknown, sir. But the power readings suggest their reactor technology is far more advanced than ours." For the first time in his adult life, Thexra felt something he had not experienced since he was a young warrior: doubt. The humans had just demonstrated that size and numbers might not be enough to guarantee victory. On the colony ship Harmony's Dawn, Captain Veltar and her crew watched in amazement as the human vessel moved through the Kronak formation like a predator among prey. The smooth black ship seemed to dance between enemy fire, its weapons reaching out to touch Kronak vessels with deadly precision. "Who are these humans?" Navigation Officer Kefal asked in wonder. Veltar shook her head. "I do not know, but they came when we called for help. That makes them friends." Communications Officer Hilvin looked up from his station. "Captain, the human ship is hailing us. Put them through." Captain Kane's face appeared on their main screen, and Veltar was surprised by how calm he looked. She had expected someone who fought with such skill to appear fierce or frightening, but Kane's eyes held only determination and compassion. "Captain Veltar, I am Alex Kane of the Earth Vessel Reaper. Are your people safe?" "For now, yes," Veltar replied. "But Captain Kane, there are 42 Kronak ships still out there. How can one vessel hope to defeat so many?" Kane smiled, and for a moment Veltar glimpsed something that made her understand why the Kronak destroyers had died so quickly. Behind the human captain's calm exterior was the soul of an apex predator, something that had evolved to hunt and kill in the most dangerous environment imaginable. "Captain Veltar, my species evolved on a world where everything was trying to eat us. We learned to be very good at fighting back. Keep your..." Warlord Thexra had ruled through fear and overwhelming force for 30 years, but as he watched the human ship tear through his formation, he felt something new and unwelcome: the possibility of defeat. The black vessel moved through space in ways that defied everything he knew about combat tactics, appearing in one location only to vanish and strike from another angle entirely. "All ships, converge on the human vessel," Thexra ordered through gritted teeth. "Surround it and destroy it with concentrated fire." 20 Kronak warships began moving toward the Reaper in a coordinated attack pattern that had crushed resistance from dozens of species over the centuries. But Captain Alex Kane had been studying their movements, and he was ready for exactly this kind of assault. "Maria, activate the gravity drive," Kane ordered. "Let's show them some human engineering." Chief Engineer Maria Santos's hands flew over. Her controls. "Gravity drive online, Captain. All systems are stable." The Reaper suddenly accelerated in a direction that should have been impossible according to Kronak understanding of physics. The ship seemed to fold space around itself, allowing it to change course without the gradual turns that normal vessels required. To the aliens, it looked like magic. What in the name of the void was that? Thexra's tactical officer stammered, as he watched the human ship perform maneuvers that violated everything he had learned about space combat. Kane smiled as he felt the familiar sensation of the gravity drive engaging. Human scientists had developed the technology by studying the way massive stars bent space and time around themselves. It was still experimental, but it gave the Reaper advantages that no alien civilization possessed. Tyler, target the command ship's engines, Kane ordered. I want that warlord alive to see his fleet destroyed, but I don't want him escaping to bring reinforcements. Sergeant Tyler Hunt locked onto the bone crusher with the precision of a master marksman. Target acquired, Captain. Firing. A spread of railgun projectiles struck the Kronak flagship's engine section with devastating accuracy. The massive ship shuddered as its propulsion systems exploded, leaving it drifting helplessly while the rest of the battle raged around it. Lieutenant Ryan Brooks had been calculating firing solutions while the Reaper maneuvered through the enemy formation. Captain, I have a clear shot at 6 more vessels. Their commanders are trying to box us in, but they are moving in predictable patterns. Take them, Kane said. The next few minutes were a demonstration of why Earth had spent so much money developing advanced weapons technology. The Reaper's plasma cannons reached out across thousands of kilometers to turn Kronak armor into glowing slag, while nuclear torpedoes with guidance systems that could think for themselves hunted down ships that tried to flee. But it was not just the weapons that made the human ship so deadly. It was the way the crew worked together, each person anticipating what the others needed before they even asked. Kane had trained with this team for 2 years, and they moved like parts of a single organism dedicated to protecting those who could not protect themselves. Dr. Kate Walsh monitored the battle from her medical station, but she was also watching the crew for signs of stress or fatigue. Captain, heart rates and stress hormones are elevated but within normal combat ranges. The team is holding together well. Kane nodded his thanks. Kate's job was not just to heal the wounded, but to make sure the crew stayed sharp during extended combat. The Kronak had numbers on their side, but humans had something better: the ability to stay calm and think clearly even when death was only seconds away. Incoming transmission from the refugee ship, Communications Specialist Lisa Torres announced. Put them through, Kane ordered. Captain Veltar's face appeared on the main screen, her large eyes wide with amazement. Captain Kane, how are you doing this? Your ship is fighting like it has the power of an entire fleet. We are just getting started, Captain Veltar, Kane replied. Keep your people calm and be ready to move toward the system's edge when I give you the signal. The transmission ended, and Kane turned back to the battle. The Kronak were learning to adapt to his tactics, spreading their ships out to make them harder to target and trying to predict where the Reaper would appear next. But human military doctrine had been developed through thousands of years of warfare against opponents who could also learn and adapt. Ryan, initiate attack pattern Delta, Kane ordered. Aye, sir. Switching to random engagement protocols. Instead of following predictable maneuvers, the Reaper began moving in patterns generated by quantum randomness, making it impossible for the Kronak to anticipate where it would strike next. At the same time, Tyler Hunt switched from concentrated attacks on single targets to rapid strikes against multiple vessels, keeping the entire enemy fleet off balance. The results were devastating. 3 more Kronak ships exploded under the Reaper's guns, while 2 others were left drifting with their weapons systems destroyed. The aliens were beginning to panic, something that had never happened in their long history of conquest. On the bridge of his crippled flagship, Warlord Thexra watched his fleet being systematically dismantled by a single enemy vessel. The humans were not fighting like any species he had ever encountered. They were not desperate or afraid. They were methodical and precise, like engineers solving a complex problem. Sir, "We are receiving surrender requests from 7 of our remaining ships," his communications officer reported. "Their captains want permission to withdraw from the battle." Thexra's yellow eyes burned with rage. "No retreats! Any ship that flees will be hunted down and destroyed by my personal guard. We outnumber these humans, and eventually their ship will be damaged or their weapons will run out of power." But Thexra was thinking like someone who had always won, through superior numbers and firepower. He did not understand that the human ship had been designed to fight exactly this kind of battle, with energy systems that could operate for days and weapons that were built to last through extended combat. Kane studied his tactical display and made a decision that would end the battle once and for all. "Maria, I need maximum power to the gravity drive. Tyler, load the special package." Maria looked concerned. "Captain, pushing the drive that hard could damage the system permanently." "Do it anyway," Kane ordered. "These people have been terrorizing innocent species for too long. It ends today." The special package that Tyler Hunt loaded into the Reaper's main torpedo tube was not a nuclear weapon or a conventional explosive. It was something that human scientists had developed by studying the cores of neutron stars, a device that could temporarily disrupt the fundamental forces that held matter together. All hands, B. 3 days after the battle, the UNS Reaper moved slowly through space alongside the Zephyrian colony ship Harmony's Dawn, escorting the refugees toward their new home. Captain Alex Kane stood in his quarters, looking out at the stars while he wrote his official report for Earth Command. How could he explain what had happened in terms that would make sense to people who had not been there? The numbers were simple enough. 47 Kronak warships had attacked peaceful refugees, and 1 human vessel had defeated the entire fleet with minimal damage. But the real importance of the battle went far beyond numbers. Humanity had announced its presence to the galaxy in a way that would be remembered for generations. A soft chime indicated someone was requesting entry to his quarters. "Come in," Kane called. Dr. Kate Walsh entered, carrying 2 cups of coffee and wearing the tired expression of someone who had spent 3 days treating wounded prisoners. "I thought you might need this," she said, offering him one of the cups. Kane accepted the coffee gratefully. "How are the Kronak survivors?" "Physically, they will recover. Mentally, that is a different question. Captain, I have been talking to some of them, and they are having trouble understanding what happened. Their entire world view was based on the idea that strength always defeats weakness." Kane nodded. He had been thinking about the same thing. "What did you tell them?" "That strength without wisdom is just brutality, and brutality always loses in the end to people who fight for something bigger than themselves." There was another chime at the door. This time, it was Lieutenant Ryan Brooks, looking more relaxed than he had since the battle began. "Captain, we just received a message from Captain Veltar. The Zephyrians have reached their new colony world safely. They are asking if we would like to attend a ceremony they are planning in our honor." Kane smiled. "Tell them we would be honored?" "To attend, but make it clear that we were just doing what any decent people would do." After Ryan left, Kane and Kate stood quietly for a moment, watching the stars. Finally, Kate spoke. "Captain, have you thought about what happens next? Word of this battle is going to spread through the galaxy. Every peaceful species is going to know that there are humans out here who will come when they call for help. And every predatory species is going to know that humans will fight back if they try to hurt innocent people," Kane added. "That should make the galaxy a safer place for everyone." Kate looked worried. "But what if they decide that humans are too dangerous to be allowed to exist? What if they all unite against us?" Kane considered this carefully. It was a real possibility, and one that Earth's leaders would have to think about seriously. But in the end, his answer was the same as it had been 3 days ago, when they had first received the Zephyrian distress call. "Then we will face that threat when it comes," he said. "But we will not change who we are because someone else might be afraid of us. Humans protect the innocent. That is who we are, and that is who we will always be." On the bridge of the Harmony's dawn, Captain Veltar was having a similar conversation with her senior officers. The ceremony she had mentioned to the humans was not just about thanking them for their help. It was about formally requesting that Earth accept the Zephyrian people as allies and friends. "Do we know enough about these humans to trust them?" Chief Engineer Tolek asked. "They are clearly very dangerous." "That is exactly why we should trust them," Veltar replied. "They had the power to destroy us as easily as they destroyed the Kronak fleet, but instead they risked their lives to save us. What more proof do we need of their character?" Navigation Officer Kef Al looked up from his station. "Captain, I'm receiving messages from 17 different species asking for information about the humans. Word is spreading fast." Veltar was not surprised. News of the battle would travel through the galaxy's communication networks carried by traders and diplomats and refugees. Within a few weeks, every major civilization would know that a new power had emerged, one that fought not for conquest or profit, but for justice. Some species would welcome this news, especially those that had suffered under the Kronak or other aggressive empires. But others, the predators and slavers and conquerors, would see humanity as a threat to their way of life. The galaxy was about to become a very different place. Back on Earth, the news of the successful rescue mission was met with celebration in some quarters and concern in others. In the secure conference room beneath the Pentagon, General Susan Hayes met with representatives from every major government to discuss the implications of first contact. The immediate mission was a success, General Hayes reported. "Captain, Kane and his crew rescued 50,000 refugees and defeated a numerically superior enemy force with no human casualties. But we need to think about what comes next." President Maria Rodriguez of the South American Federation spoke first. "General, are we prepared for the possibility that other alien empires might see us as a threat?" "We are as prepared as we can be, Madam President. The Reaper was our most advanced warship, but we have been building others. If necessary, we can defend ourselves." Director Chen Wei of the Asian Cooperative raised another concern. "What about the aliens who might want to be our allies? Are we prepared for that kind of relationship?" General Hayes nodded. "We have been developing first contact protocols for decades. Captain Kane's actions have given us a foundation to build on. We showed the galaxy that humans can be trusted to do the right thing." The meeting continued for hours as Earth's leaders debated humanity's future role in galactic affairs. But in the end, they reached the same conclusion that Kane had reached in his quarters. Humans would remain true to their values regardless of the consequences. 3 weeks later, deep space monitoring stations across human space began detecting new signals from previously unknown civilizations. Some were requests for help from species under attack by various predator empires. Others were offers of alliance and trade from peaceful civilizations that wanted to work with the humans who had defeated the Kronak. A few signals were less friendly, warnings and threats from species that saw humanity's emergence as a challenge to their power. But even these hostile messages revealed something important. The galaxy's bullies were afraid, and they had good reason to be. Commander Jake Morrison was working the night shift at Deep Space Monitoring Station Blackwater when the most significant message arrived. It was broadcast on the same emergency frequency that the Zephyrians had used, but this time it came from multiple sources scattered across dozens of star systems. "Lisa, are you seeing this?" He called to communications specialist Lisa Torres, who was analyzing the incoming signals. "Yes, sir, and it is amazing. We are getting distress calls from at least 20 different species, all asking specifically for help from Earth. They have heard about what we did for the Zephyrians, and they want the same protection." Jake stared at the display showing the locations of the signals. They came from all directions, covering a volume of space larger than anything humans had ever imagined. "Get me Earth Command immediately. We are going to need more ships." As the news spread through human space, volunteers began lining up at military recruitment centers. The idea of protecting innocent aliens from space pirates and slave traders appealed to the same instincts that had made humans willing to risk their lives for strangers throughout their history. Captain Alex Kane received his new orders while the Reaper was still escorting Zephyrian colonists to their new world. Earth Command was promoting him to Admiral and giving him command of a new fleet. 12 ships built using the same advanced technology that had made the Reaper so effective. His mission was simple: patrol the local region of the galaxy and respond to request for help from peaceful species under threat from aggressive neighbors. It was exactly the kind of job that Kane had hoped for when he first joined the military. But as he prepared to take command of his new fleet, Kane reflected on the larger meaning of what they were doing. Humans had evolved on a dangerous world that had taught them to be strong, smart, and cooperative. Now they were using those same qualities to make the galaxy a safer place for species that had not been so fortunate in their evolution. It was, Kane thought, exactly what humans were meant to do. They were apex predators who had chosen to become guardians instead of conquerors, and that choice would echo through the galaxy for generations to come. The age of the Kronak hegemony was ending, and the age of human protection was just beginning.